Welcome to part 2 of constructing my spring house. If you saw the last video, I went over the construction of laying the block and putting in the water lines. I also showed a few steps that I had to do initially before I could get to this stage. If you want to learn more about the spring house and its plumbing and how it's going to operate when it's completely finished, stay tuned. I'll show you all that in a different video. It's taken some trial and error, but I'm getting there. In this video, I'm going to do some framing. I'll build a roof with a hinge that opens up so I can access the inside. I'll side it, and by the end, we'll have a proper finished structure. Alright, to begin, I need to lay a sill plate on top of this block. One thing I learned about construction, and framing in particular, is that it's a good idea to try to build things using even measurements. Don't make something 26.5 inches when it can be 24. In this case, the arrangement of the blocks allowed me to make a nice 36-inch square. I drilled into the mortar that I poured into the block cavities, and then carefully sank some concrete screws into those boards to anchor them down. Then I put a second plate on, alternating the joints to tie everything together. And if you're wondering, these boards are actually treated 2x6s, ripped in half. Step 1 is complete. The next step is fun, figuring out the pitch of the roof. Shed roofs are awesome because they're simple. One pitch, one length. All you do is grab a board that spans the whole distance of your roof, hold it up, and decide what angle looks good to you. Then you're going to take a tape and you're going to measure the rise. This measures about 1 foot, so it's a 1 foot rise over a 3 foot run. That makes a 412 pitch, which is pretty common for sheds. To hold up the tall side of the roof, I'm going to build a small wall. I am using incorrect screws for this technically. These are only 2 3/4 inch deck screws, but for a small project like this, it's not going to be a problem. If you want to do this properly, use 3.5 inch screws or nails. Now that the rafter length is cut to an even 4 feet, I'm going to take a quick measurement of the overhang just to see what I like. And then I'm going to mark a vertical line on each side of the top plate. Now, I should be doing this with a level, but if you saw my last video, you may have noticed my level situation is underwhelming. I can tell you that I did buy a proper level because the next project required it. I just decided to wait until the last possible minute to do so. As long as you're careful, you can make this work. Lay your speed square on the rafter, intersecting with your vertical marks. And this is going to tell you where to cut out your bird's mouth. The idea is that this roof does something either like this or like this so that I can access the inside. And I haven't quite figured that part out. Getting there. All right. Let's call it a day. I think I've got this figured out. If I put a 2x6 underneath here, I can mount the hinges up under like that. I think I'm going to take this 2x6 top plate that you see here and screw that to the rafters so that whole thing will come up and down. That'll also keep this roof very bottom heavy when I'm opening and close it, so it does, hopefully so it doesn't wobble as much or want to get wonky on me. All right, this board is beveled, and I shaved a little bit right here. That's going to work. I heard a guy say, in framing, close is perfect. And I would say that is close. All right, that rock's a hazard. You know what's cool? When you show up to your property and everything is covered in a thick fog and heavy dew, but you're chilling because you just built a roof. So it's covered. Literally, it's covered. And you didn't forget to cover your tools, which is cool. But when I came down to look at the spring overflow bucket, it was really murky. And normally this water is crystal clear. It turns out this was from all the excavation we did up by the pond, which is above where I'm capturing my spring water. Obviously, when you move a lot of dirt and you mix water with it, you get a lot of mud. Now, nothing is ruined. Mother Nature has her own way of cleaning these things up, but I am going to help her out a little bit to speed up the process, since I did, after all, create the problem. That will be in a later video as well. So, back to the build. Now it's time to finish up the siding. It doesn't need to be anything special, it just needs to be functional. I'm using scrap 1-bys from the same shipping crate that I pulled the OSB from. Cool. And every time I add something, I just make sure that the roof closes correctly. Now it's time to build a soffit. I need to keep the animals out of that housing, but I'd like moisture to be able to escape. I didn't install a vent on the back of the roof, but I figured this would probably be enough. And now it's time to finish up the front of the siding. I did put a piece of scrap plastic over that OSB because I'm sure that the front is going to come in contact with a lot of moisture. And I need to add one last functional touch. A way to keep this roof from falling too far backwards. Either from its own weight, or maybe if it gets caught by the wind. A scrap piece of webbing with a couple roofing screws will work just fine. Now that the structure is complete, I can move a little bit of this dirt that's just been sitting around. You know when you dig a hole and then you try to refill it with the same dirt that you just moved from it, and it always seems like there's never enough? Anyways, these little rocks will look really nice up against the edge, and they'll keep some of that dirt from having direct contact with the siding. That looks really nice. On the lower side, I'll grab some of these smaller rocks from the creek to make a little planter box and fill it with some of that mucky dirt that came from the pond. Honestly, I'm not sure if that one will make it, but we'll see. And one more on the side. And finally, the work is done. And I can wash my hands, which is one of the reasons I keep this bucket here, pull the extension pipe from the overflow, and take some beauty shots. In the next video for this build, I'm going to install the water pump with some PVC piping, and I'll run power to it with a float switch. And the spring house will be fully operational. If you made it this far, I appreciate it. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.